You know, it's kind of crazy how a show like JoJo can make a rat beat a villain and it still be amazing because that right there is pretty much what this episode was. Like the title for it was "Let's Go Hunting," and that right there is what they really meant. Like they were hunting for these rats because we did learn that there were two rats, and both of them actually had the same stand, and so we see now that when the episode like starts off, we have Jotaro and Josuke, like they were talking, and we have Jotaro saying that like he was gonna go hunting, and he invited Josuke to go with him, and so we see now that Josuke, in his mind, he was thinking that they were like going hunting for chicks, but he cannot be more wrong about that. And so now we see that they went to like some kind of farm, but pretty much before they enter the premises, like we have Jotaro using Star Platinum to use these beads, and we see him now flicking it with like enough force that we see him hit the cans dead on, and we see the imprint that the impact actually made from it. And so right now, when it was Josuke's turn, we see how he hit the first can, but he actually messed up with the second one because we saw that it hit the wooden fence that was sitting on, but he was still pretty close. And so right now we have Jotaro giving him a warning, saying that when it comes to like something like this, that his composure is more important than his speed. And so right now, like, even though Jotaro was not trying to put a lot of pressure onto Josuke, he was definitely doing that because obviously with a stand user, with a stand user now being an animal and that being a rat, because some of them are pretty crafty, just like the ones that they went up against, they pretty much had to like keep their composure while dealing with it. And so right now, like we learned that it was a brown rat that was shot, and I don't know why what's his name, like the user of Red Hot Chili Pepper, even shot a rat to begin with. But apparently this rat didn't die. Like we learned now how it actually got free from the arrow, which I'm not even sure how that's possible, but it was still alive, and it ran off to escape. And so right now, where they were like stalking out where this rat could be, we see now that they were like setting up these traps and a video camera so that way they could tape, whether or not if it came by there or if it did get trapped. And so while Josuke was like setting up, we saw now that there was this like unusual number of flies that were like gathering in one spot. And we see now that when Josuke went to go investigate, we saw like all these like rats' bodies because they were all melted together. Like we could see their flesh in like some kind of cube, and we saw their heads sticking out. And to make things worse, we have Jotaro actually stabbing it or poking it with a stick, and all we see is like the blood coming out of it. And so that right there was like just so freaking nasty. And throughout the episode, Josuke, he was definitely kind of like freaking out. Like we saw how he was like kind of nervous throughout the entire thing, except for the end where he finally shook his nerve or that pressure he was feeling, and we saw him be really cool in the end there. But moving on now, like there were like this tunnel that we see that if the rat actually was like able to climb up and go through there, it would take them directly like into the house or at least close to it, like in the field. So finally, when they do go to the house, because there were like the chicken pens, but there were no chickens around. Like it was like pretty quiet in the field, so you knew obviously something was like going on. And we see now that even when they checked the house, they found these rat droppings, and for some reason Jotaro definitely like knows his research because he can even tell what the rat poop was like made up of, and that right there was meat. And so now we have Jotaro going upstairs to like check the other rooms, while Josuke here stayed downstairs because something was like catching his attention because he could hear something in that refrigerator actually running. And so right now, where he was like getting closer to the refrigerator, in the kitchen, like we saw the door opening, And that right there really raised a red flag for him because there was no way a door like this could open on its own. But we saw now that the door was like never closed completely, and the rat itself, and this rat, it was like freaking huge. Now, of course, some rats can actually grow that big, but just seeing that nasty looking creature, because we saw like part of the face or something, it was like kind of hardened, or it had veins in his face, like really like sticking out. But regardless, this rat was freaking huge, and we saw it now eating like some kind of meat. And then we see that where we have the picture of the door opening completely, like we saw the old couple who lived here. They were still alive, but their bodies were like melted together. And of course we couldn't see it, completely because that right there was like censored. But they were still alive, and we have the rat actually eating them. And so that right there was sick. And so right now, while this rat was eating this human meat, we have Josuke looking at it, and we see now that right when Josuke was like gonna call for help, that right there is where him and that rat eyes actually met. And so right now he had no choice but to deal with it. And so we see now that when he shot the first bead, that right there wasn't a fatal shot, but it was definitely hurt. And we see it now trying to run, but we have Josuke here using Crazy Diamond to like kick this table so that way it will block like the only exit it had. And so now we see that this rat was like hiding behind the chair, but we see him now using his stand, and we see it shoot out this arrow. And so this arrow, like, it was like kind of pointy, and to me it looked, like somewhat strange. But luckily for Josuke, he actually, acted pretty fast by using his frying pan to actually block it. But that impact that it made, making that little hole in the frying pan, you can tell that there was definitely some pressure in that shot to make it, like go that fast to make that kind of impact. And so right now we see Josuke, he was like going to go for another hit, with the bead, but we see now that the rat had died afterwards due to his injuries. And so right now, with it now dead, we have Josuke calling for Jotaro. And so when he comes down and like check it out, we actually learned that there were like more than one rat, because this rat actually got Jotaro. And once again, unfortunately, it was censored, but we can see his hand. It was now melting, and we see it now like having like these little boils on it, and they were like opening up, and you could just see like all this pus. And to make things worse, they actually showed a close-up of that, and that was just nasty. And so all this time, Jotaro was like holding up his hand, but that's because he was waiting for Crazy Diamond to actually, fix him up. And so after Jotaro was like, recovered, we see now that he called the Speedwagon Foundation, and they got more info about the they got more info out of the user behind Red Hot Chili Pepper, and we learned now, like even though we already knew, it was definitely confirmed. Excuse me. It was confirmed that that he only shot 2 rats. And Jotaro was like making sure that there wasn't 3 or 4, and so now this rat that they now have to chase, because we do learn that the rat actually ran out the house after he heard Jotaro. Excuse me for a moment. I needed water like really bad, so sorry about that. But yeah, that rat had left after he had heard Jotaro. And so now it was like back out in the wild. And so pretty much it was like covering a very large terrain, because this rat had the advantage because it could hide anywhere, like it could be in the like chicken pen, it could be in the field. And so right now they had to like hunt it down. And excuse me, we have Jotaro, like using this metaphor while they were walking, saying that a rat or an animal, they don't like going into unknown territory, so obviously it would go to somewhere it's been before. and we see now that when they went back to check the track and everything, the rat actually ignored it. But checking that footage, we do see that this rat is like very smart, and we do learn that Jotaro actually gave it a name because part of its ear was like missing, like a bug, a part of a leaf, so it was called like bug eating, something like that. And so right now they were looking for bug eating, and we see now that they were like following these tracks, and we see that eventually they had led like to this little pond, and so we have Jotaro not really giving a fuck, stepping in there like it's nothing. But when it came to Josuke, this guy went as far as to like taking off his shoes, his socks, and holding up his pants leg. But then we have Jotaro like giving him a warning, saying that there were like leeches, in the water. And so pretty much after hearing that, we see him drop everything because he was like so shocked. But at the same time, like rather than feeling bad for Josuke at this scene, I was like dying laughing because to me it was actually pretty funny. And so eventually now they continue to like follow these tracks, but we see now that they suddenly stop, and that's because this rat actually did something called backtracking, where it went backwards and like in the same manner that it left the tracks in, because that right there was the fool. It's Hunter. And so normally rats don't do that, or at least in Nintendo don't do that. So this right here was the first time that a rat has done that, and because of that, that really like outplayed Josuke and Jotaro, because now they were the ones being hunted by this rat, because it could be hiding anywhere, and it was hiding, because we see now that both of them, they were definitely on guard, and they couldn't really figure out where the rat was. And so now because of that, they had no choice but to like try to lure it out. And that right there is where Jotaro came into play, because he even said that if he gets shot, he can definitely be healed by Shiny Diamond, but Josuke, he cannot heal himself. So it made perfect sense for what's the name, for Jotaro to be the bait. Oh, and also we got this scene, like while they were hiding like behind this rock, Jotaro noticed something, but when he went to go touch it, like we see the slam on his fingers, and that right there was a mousetrap. Now I don't know how like this rat actually placed that there, but regardless, that right there actually got Josuke, and we see now that the rat has shot him in the neck with like one of those darts. And so because of that, Jotaro here, he had no choice but to use the world, to like stop time, because we see him now flicking off the needle or the dart, and also the flesh that it was like infecting. And to me, that right there was awesome. Even though Jotaro has not really used that power, to like extend it, just see him use it every now and then, and just him saying the word, I don't know why, but I get hype, him say that every single time. And so after that, like we now have Josuke here, like looking for the stand user or the rat or bug eating, while we have Jotaro, approaching him, so that way he'll be forced to like use his darts. And so pretty much now, the first time bug eating actually shot Jotaro, he dodged it, but the second time he had used these rocks to his advantage to like ricochet the darts, so that way Jotaro would get hit from behind. And we see now that he got shot in the arm and in the leg, and we see both of them were like starting to melt. And so this rat, he was not done yet, because when he shot Jotaro again, he had dodged too, but the other ones had like hit him. And so all you see now is like Jotaro's body like melting into like this pink mush, and that right there, which is so freaking nasty. And then we have Josuke here trying to like calm his nerves, and we see now that when he finally shot one of those rifle bullets, because that right there is what they were using now, because that right there gave them more range. Like the first one, it seemed like he missed because we saw him hit the rock in front of bug eating, but that right there was a ploy to like lure it out, because this time like his nerves have finally calmed down. He even said he feels stronger, and so when bug eating came out, Josuke was like already ready, and we see him now like using another one, and this one had went right through him, and that right there was the end of it. And so to me, that right there was like awesome. Like just seeing Josuke get rid of like all his fears like that and doing what he need to do. That right there was impressive in my book. And not to mention he was like definitely acting cool at the end there with like that thumbs up. But to me, you know, what made it kind of funny was that even Jotaro was like not really sure how to feel after all this went down. But we all know Jotaro, you know, he will be alright. And even though Josuke, you know, did say he can fix that old couple with Pretty Diamond, you know, we did not see him do that. So what if like in a twist he actually forgot to heal them, because obviously they have to like take care of these stand users and those people are still left like that. You know, that right there will be messed up, but at the same time I doubt, you know, that would be the case. But regardless, now that right there is where the episode ended. And like I said earlier in my review, JoJo is a series that can make a freaking rat an enemy, and the episode would still be amazing. And so like already you guys know what I think of the episode. Like it was damn good as usual. JoJo does not disappoint. And so, of course, let me know what you guys thought. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because it really helps me out. And as always, you guys take it easy, and I will see you all next time.